Okay, tips on reverse applique. So, first of all, there's this panel, exterior panel that I've cut out. I don't know if you can see it, but I've drawn the outline of the heart on it for the Love of Change pattern by Lauren Mormino. You can get that pattern at mormino.com. So I've picked out what I'm going to have underneath showing through, which is this one. And you want to make sure that your shape fits with some excess around the outside. You definitely want some extra material all around all the edges. It doesn't have to be huge around everywhere, but you want probably at least a 1/4 inch of overlap everywhere. And then I like to have a couple of bigger areas where I can stick double-sided tape to keep it in place while I'm stitching. So that's all set. And then you can either use an X-Acto blade, or these are Appliqué scissors, which have a really fine point. There we go. Really fine point tip on them, and they're really sharp. You can get exactly to the point that you want with them, a little better than regular sewing shears or whatever. So let's see. So here's one that I already did. You guys probably saw, I posted a picture of it. I'm leaving it there for a minute in case it's not focusing good or whatever. So this one, I think I cut out with my applique scissors, I believe, because the shape isn't that complicated. That's easier, and it works fine. This bag that I recently did, get the handle out of the way. There we go, get it centered. Hopefully somehow get rid of the glare. It's a reflective thing and I'm going the wrong way. There we go, I think, ish. Okay, so this shape being more complicated, I cut this out with the X-Acto blade. It's easiest to go like from the tips of points inwards or away from the tips of points, to start at the point and go in. So you know, you can start and stop at different various places. So this one was a little more complicated. In between the hind legs here, I kind of came around this foot, I went up, I did like around the inside in here, and then I stopped before I went back over that really thin line in between right there. I stopped and I broke thread because I didn't want to stitch over that line again. That piece of black vinyl in there is so skinny, I just felt like if I stitched through it again I was going to obliterate it. So anyways, I cut that one with an X-Acto knife. Hi Vivian. And if you're really careful, of course I don't know where the thing is now, but I have the black horse that I cut out, but I don't know where he is right now, and I'm not gonna try to find him. So I kept the black horse, it's around somewhere, and I can actually do a regular applique of that horse onto something else later. So I wouldn't normally cut this shape out with a X-Acto knife because it's so simple, but just to show, like I would start at the point of the heart. You guys probably can't see, but the heart is drawn like this. I have it in pink. I thought the pink would stand out, but it's not. So I start at the point, and you want to have a cutting mat below your work so that you're not ruining your tabletop or whatever. And just cut right on the line. And just take your time, and if you need to stop and reposition, that's fine. I'm trying to kind of hold it still without my hands being in the way, but now curves, you're going to want to, you know, go slow and turn it and start again, you know, put it in a position so it's comfortable for you to get the line you want. Now here, if you're worried about going too far, you could turn it around. You could start from this center point of the heart and go back to meet your already cut line if you wanted to, or you can just really carefully go up to that point, which is like in the center of the top of the heart. So you can see this is cut out. One nice thing about using the X-Acto blade, even if you don't want to cut the whole thing out with the X-Acto blade, if you start it, it gives you a point to get in with your scissors, so you don't have to ruin this middle piece if you want to use it for something else. Because it can be hard to get, you know, started with your scissors without destroying the piece in the middle. We use these a lot. I went to like a technical high school, and I was in the art shop, and we used these a lot back then, these X-Acto blades. So I'm holding it so the two pieces are being kind of held together with this hand so that nothing's shifting, and because you do have to kind of push down and drag this blade through the material. And then right to that point where we stopped. And then if you missed, you know, if any little bits aren't cut 100%, I just have like the tiniest little fiber here. There we go. So then you've cut out your heart. One of these days I'll get used to everything being backwards. You've cut out your heart, and you can save that for another project to do normal applique. One thing I can say, you want to be really careful with these. These are razor sharp. They're like scalpel razor sharp. So, you know, treat it with care and caution. These applique scissors would work just as well for something like this. They probably would not work very well for something like that horse that I showed you, because it was just so so detailed. Trying to do it with the scissors I don't think would have worked very well. So okay, so now I'm gonna flip this over. I brought over some double-sided tape. I'm just going to cut a piece of that. You don't need to do a ton of it, but you just want to, I like to just hold this in place, you know. So I'm going to stick this here for now. So I'm kind of feeling with my fingers, making sure that this is overlapping, that the two materials are overlapping by a good amount. It would have been probably better if I had a bigger piece, but I was greedy and I was trying to get two pieces out of that one metallic piece. So anyway, alright, so now I want to kind of hold it in place. You can peek from this side too and make sure you're not too close to, that the edges aren't too close to each other. Oops, I just moved it again. Okay. So I'm kind of looking around, making sure that my edges aren't too close. This is why it's good to have a little extra material so you have somewhere to stick this stuff. So I'm just sticking little tiny pieces of double-sided tape on the underneath. Hi Linda. Hi Christina. Just sticking it on there. I'm kind of continuing to hold down the piece so it doesn't move. If you have a bigger piece of like this material, it's not such a big deal, but I kind of cut it so that I have just enough, which was probably kind of silly, but I wanted to get 2 hearts out of that scrap that I had instead of 1, so I did that. Okay, so there. So now it's, you know, it's secured. It's gonna stay there while you're stitching. Come on. Sometimes my fingers don't like to work. Okay. So now I do stitch usually these simpler shapes. I just stitch them on my industrial because, I don't know, it's just, then I'm already there and I can just continue sewing the bag or whatever. But it is easier to sew it on my domestic, and the main reason why it's easier is I can use an applique foot or an open toe foot. So the applique foot or open toe foot will look something like this. You can see right where the needle is going. There is nothing, not even a piece of plastic or anything blocking your vision. There's nothing there, so you can see exactly where you're going, where the needle's going. So that makes it easy. I did the horse on this because I wanted to be able to get into all those tiny little areas without wondering exactly where the needle was gonna fall as I'm throwing stuff on the ground. Okay. I just turned my machine on and it automatically does a lock stitch when it starts, and I don't want that on my project, so of course it didn't do it that time. I don't know. This machine's getting old and it's starting to behave a little strangely sometimes, but I love it. Okay, so I personally would start like at one of the points, either like the inner point of the heart or the outer point. That's just me. And I would not backstitch. If you want to, you can. There's nothing wrong with it, but you're gonna see it. And if you want it to look really clean and uniform, then I would not backstitch. So before I even put my foot down, I can use my hand wheel. I can place that needle exactly where I want it to be, and I'm about 1/8 of an inch outside of that point. I wonder if I should try to move you a little closer. Might have to lower this. Okay. I think that's good. Alright. So, I'm staying about 1/8 of an inch or less away from the edge of the cork, and I'm just going to follow along. I think I'm going to I'm going to put my stitch length up to 3.5 on this, which is okay. So I just go nice and slow. This part of the heart is pretty easy because it's, I want my needle to stop down, fairly straight. So now we're coming up to the curve. And you're just going to turn. And if you need to, you can stop, turn, lift your foot up, turn your work a little bit. If you're going around a tight curve, it's best to do lots of little tiny adjustments like this rather than one big adjustment, because if you do one big adjustment, you're gonna have a pointy looking change of direction. If you're going around a curve, the point is not gonna match. So it's best to just do like a couple of stitches and then adjust it a little bit again. My foot, if you just tap it ever so lightly, it just goes, puts the needle up. Alright, so I just use my hand wheel to get the needle right down in that point where I want it to be nice and in there. And now I lift my foot up, I readjust to go the new direction. So like I said, lots of little tiny adjustments. When you make your adjustments, you want to make sure your needle is in the down position and just do lots of small adjustments every like 1 to 3 stitches, I would say. So now we're approaching the straight part again of the heart, so that's a little easier, and we can just go. Now we're getting back to the end. So now my last stitch ended up like a tiny bit away from my initial stitch. It's not long enough to fit a whole nother stitch in, so I don't want to do that because I'd go past the point. So I'm going to lift my needle and then I'm going to crank it so it almost touches the cork, and then I'm adjusting it so the needle is going to go right in the beginning of that first stitch that I put in there. And then I'm raising my needle again, pull my work out, clip my threads. You want to leave kind of long tails, and then you're going to flip over, and I tend to use like a stiletto for this, and I just I pull my threads to the back. Okay, so which one did I not get yet? I think it's this one. And sometimes you have a hard time doing it. There, that should loosen that up. Should be this one. No. There we go. Okay. So if you pull on the thread that's long, that's already long on the back, it'll kind of pop a loop of the thread from the front to the back, and you can pull that loop. Make sure I have the right. Yes, okay. So now all 4 of my threads are at the back. And I would just tie them in a knot. You want it to be snug but not too tight, because on some material, if you did it too tight, you can kind of pull the material together and that doesn't look good. So just tie it in a knot. I would leave a little bit of thread behind, like 1/2 inch to 1 inch, so that you're not, you know, isn't gonna come undone accidentally. I'm just tying the other end. Oops. There we go. Okay, so let me see if, so you can see down here at the bottom I have the knots, and then on the front it just looks really clean. There's no back stitching, there's no ends of threads or whatever. It's just, that's just how it is. It's done. Yay! So now you can do whatever you were gonna do with this piece before. It's ready to use. I usually, just to help like kind of seal everything together, I at least put a piece of like woven fuse or something on the back over everything, so that it just kind of makes it all one piece. So that is all there is to it. Reverse applique. If there's any questions, let me know. If I didn't show something that you wanted to see, you know, let me know. Alright. Thanks. I hope that the focus wasn't too bad. Okay. Have a good one, you guys. Bye. Thank you.